Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades, happy Friday night. You made it here. The most glorious 4 or 5 hours of the entire week is Friday night after work. It is Friday, May the 8th. We've also made it to, in southerly parts of the country, the early summer. So congratulations. In the Roman Catholic Church, we have had nearly to the day 1 year of the reign of Pope Leo XIV. And the big question has been, since before he even took the papal throne, is he going to be Francis too? It's hard to imagine him not being Francis part two, because Francis appointed such a hefty portion of the cardinal electors. Now, he's been quiet, mostly quiet, unlike Francis, for his first year. And that's sort of refreshing. But could it be that we have our first American Pope, as I've speculated all year long, simply because Peter's Pence is like 40% donated by Americans compared to the rest of the world? It's like 40%. And Pope Francis was tremendously unpopular with Americans, most particularly American conservatives, but also American moderates. They rightly noted that he was a man of the left. He was a particularly vociferous and at times always loquacious, vociferous, and at times just pugnacious and looking to start trouble kind of man of the left. And so it makes sense that Leo XIV would be a man, number 267, who follows his Petrine predecessor, as if he's in that same mold ideologically and theologically, quiet. He's an American. Americans like other Americans. And he wants to be set up, positioned, situated as if he is not a man of the left, while quietly doing those things which propagate the Francis legacy, the Jesuit overturn of the church, which has been going on since a little before the time of the Second Vatican Council. And that's what it seems to be. This isn't a Leo show, though. Tonight's episode is going to focus on one guy in particular who was a Francis cardinal, a man of cardinal, a cardinal who was pushed, advocated for by Francis, who is set as one of the two leaders of the Synod of Synodality. His name is Cardinal Mario Grech. And together with Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, they were the two leaders of the Synod on Synodality. And this means that, Tucho Fernandez, who's supposed to be the doctrinal number 2 in the church, might not necessarily be as important, doctrinally speaking, as these two cardinals. Cardinal Hollerich with the CH and Cardinal Grech, or Grech, also with the CH at the end. That could be the way programmatically that Francis has set up this house of cards. It could be, hey, I'm going to sort of rope-a-dope you here, and then the punch comes from here, because everyone knows, anyone in the know knows that he was first seriously trying 2 different times, Cardinal Heiner Wilmer of the German synodal way, the proper understanding of the Synod on Synodality. And when that didn't work, he got Tucho Fernandez, who is a lefty. He has a book on French kissing that he wrote for teens. He's a pervert, and he's the number 2 in the church. We've trained all our fire on this prefect of the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith, mostly. That would mean it works. Most conservatives and anti-modernists, faithful Roman Catholics in the church, forget that Grech and Hollerich are the two cardinals who are really running the show with the Synod on Synodality, which is the closest thing there is to a conceptual bridge. Pontifex Maximus means greatest bridge builder. Well, the greatest bridge between this bridge builder and the last, this pontifex and the last, is the Synod on Synodality. I've told you for 5 years, the Synod on Synodality is the German synodal way hiding in plain sight. And that makes these two men, Cardinals, Grech and Hollerich, arguably the two most important cardinals in the Roman Catholic Curia. Tonight's show is about something, an honest moment, a quiet part being spoken aloud by Cardinal Gresh. And I'm going to get to what he said just yesterday in a Synod report. Synod marches on, even though Leo the 14th is smart enough, shrewd enough to keep it relatively quiet, unlike Pope Francis. That's all in this quick update show on the church, because so much other stuff has been going on. We had all this masculinity, feminism, patriarchy stuff happening. I did a bunch of shows on that. Had a lot of stuff in American politics. Trump turned warmongering Zionist, not overnight, because we saw it coming. I didn't want to vote for him. I held my nose as I voted for him and nearly didn't. Only decided to go ahead and pull the ballot at the last minute. That's been dominating the news. We were talking about, Carrie Prejean-Bowler being kicked off the Religious Liberty Committee. We've been talking a lot about Zionism. Just yesterday or the day before, Insurrection Barbie, a rabid evangelical Zionist, was coming at me. So we've been doing, over the last couple of months, political theology against the evangelical Zionists. And that's been everything. That's been most of my labor for Rules for Retrogrades, in addition to the patriarchy prong of our message over the last couple months. But we got to get back to the papacy some. And I've tried to return to it occasionally. We did that 3-part Every Pope Ever show, 267 of them. And that was really fun and I think useful. It's a useful resource going forward. So today we're going to talk about, I think, the agenda that will inform Pope Leo XIV for this pontificate. And it's not a shocker. It is the true agenda of Pope Francis I and the Jesuits, and it's represented by something Cardinal Gresh said in this Synod document about Homo sapien relationships, something bad. First, I want to remind you guys, subscribe to this channel. We're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. Please like and leave a comment if you find this video good or helpful. But if you watch regularly, please just subscribe. Also, you can become a local supporter. Today, if you do so to the tune of $13 a month or more, you'll get a Parish Orphan Patron Pack in the mail, which is really, really cool, hard, tangible goods. We really need your help. Most notably, I've been sharing with you guys over the last 12 days the birth of my 8th child, born with Down syndrome. That's now confirmed. So please keep us in your prayers. People are asking me in emails and on Twitter, DMs, things like that. How can we help? Can we send you something? You can either use the P.O. box if you want to send me something at timothyjgordon.com, or you can click donate for a one-time donation. That's different from helping through locals, which is not a donation. You get stuff. You get usually a locals private only show after shows. We're still tired catching up on sleep. Steph's still recovering from a C-section, so we're not going to do one today, but we'll do one soon. You get sneak peeks. You get looks at what we're doing. You get news ahead of time. You get free stuff, free books, some books, free classes. It's not just a sneak peek at my new haiku that I wrote about the Gulf of Mexico or whatever. I know that's how some people sort of halfway bait their Patreon and locals patrons, and I don't think it's much of effective bait. So we try to give really good stuff. The Parish Orphan Patron Pack is this stuff here to my right, and I think it's pretty cool stuff. Finally, I will say this once. It's the beginning of summer. The easiest time to make a move. I dare you, I defy you, if you live in a blue state, get out this summer. Get to a red state. Do whatever you have to do. Look at it as a major feature of your providership for your family. Men out there, patriarchs out there, go to realestateforlife.org and get out of your blue state, get to a red state today, just like I did 6 years ago this summer in July. I got from the bluest state, California, to the reddest state, Mississippi, and I swear to you, it's a sales pitch, but it's not just a sales pitch. It has made a humongous quotidian difference in the quality of life of myself and my family. So go to www.realestateforlife.org. So at about the 1 year mark in the pontificate of Pope Leo XIV, we get an update from that decisive study group 9. Remember, they use at the synods now the Circoli Minori. That means small study groups. They started using the Circoli Minori at the second family synod, the ordinary family synod in October 2015. Remember what happened in October 2014. They were not using these small study groups, the Circoli Minori. And because they weren't, the conservatives, particularly the African cardinals, really counterattacked the skullduggery that was happening at that first synod of the Francis pontificate in October 2014. So to respond strategically, i.e. with strategery, they reversed course, changed a bunch of the synod rules for the following October, the second part of the synod on the family, and they moved to small study groups, Circoli Minori. They made things secret. They kept the press mostly out, and it worked. And they got Amoris Laetitia done. That is to say, communion for the divorced and civilly remarried. The worst thing, the closest thing to actual heresy in the Francis pontificate. Someone soon is going to have to undo it, or it becomes a major problem. All right, that's a side story, though, for now. All I wanted to say is, when I talk about Synod on Synodality Study Group 9, this is the group where all the muscle is and has been in the Circoli Minori. So they use personal testimonies in Study Group 9 from the gays to question the sinful nature of Homo sapienness and to suggest debate on SS unions, whether or not that remains unresolved. And I am reading from LifeSite News, and I know there have been times over the last 10 years where LifeSite was a bit trigger happy, bordering on fatuousness, and some people stopped trusting them. That's the cost of doing business when you do it that way. But I still do go to LifeSite semi-frequently, less frequently than before. I'm a little gun shy because of a couple of those stories now too. But having said that, this has been confirmed everywhere. And this story actually broke 2 days ago, not yesterday. A report from the Vatican's General Secretariat of the Synod published Tuesday suggests a reframing of Homo sapienness, endorsing testimony without disqualification that, quote, sin at its root does not consist in the SS, you know what that is, couple relationship, dude on dude, but, quote, in a lack of faith in a God who desires our fulfillment. So that's a bad opening note. They say in Circle 9, I'm not going to make jokes here, I'm not going to be gross, but in Circle 9, they say that sin doesn't consist in Homo sapiens doing their thing. Disgusting. You know, Homo sapiens can be gross. We're talking about humans, of course. Now, we're also talking about, you know, the Skittles interest, Skittles lobby, Homo sapiens. Very, very gross, very, very sinful, horrible lives lived. Instead of being encouraged to come to Jesus, be celibate, do the right thing, these guys, like Cardinals Gresh and Hollerich and a significant portion of the gays walking around in the cardinalate, in the episcopate, are trying to say it's okay. We're going to study it. We're going to study this black wall so much that maybe it'll cease to be black. That's all they're doing. We're going to study really up close whether or not laying sod, not talking about your yards, laying sod is mortally sinful. We know it is. It doesn't matter how much you study it. 2 and 2 is always going to be 4. Well, this is how they open. They say, well, sinfulness isn't inherent in this act of SS union, matrimonially or coitally. But it consists in having a lack of faith in God. That's just wrong. It's just bad theology. I'll continue. The Vatican commissioned Study Group 9 of the Synod on Synodality published its final report on May the 5th, 3 days ago. Theological criteria and synodal methodologies for shared discernment of emerging doctrinal, pastoral, and ethical issues, under the heading, Taking a Synodal Approach to Discernment. It's like discerning a synodal approach to approaching with a discernment, discernistically. These words don't mean anything, and they only fool midwits and nitwits. But guess what? That's like 98% of everyone. Take a note from Aristotle. He says the midwits and the nitwits are 98% of everyone. That's why they talk this way. That sounds so stupid to so many of us, to me and the parish orphans and retrogrades out there, because you guys are disproportionately intelligent compared to all the midwits and nitwits out there. This is one of the most intelligent audiences. It's small, moderate, middling size, but it's boutique. So what to us just seems uncommonly stupid, and we would say it's actually frighteningly common. But they talk this way with this newspeak, neologisms out the wazoo about stuff they think they can take into the wazoo because it works with dummies and midwits. Under the heading, this thing I already read, Taking a Synodal Approach to Discernment, a proposal for implementation in local churches. The 32-page document relies on the testimonies of the lived experience of two individuals with same-sex attraction to aid the promotion of pastoral discernment. So it's like if you went and you got, I'm not even joking, I'm not trying to be funny, or my tongue's not on my cheek here. What this is like is if you wanted to make one of the sins that cries out to heaven, one of the obvious mortal sins. Okay, let's take murder. One of the 5 that cries out to heaven, like sod. And you just say, look, I'm talking to 2 murderers. And here's the thing, because of human empathy, the more you talk to 2 sinners, the more you actually, even if they're sinners who are really odd and committed their lives to a mortal sin that you don't understand, you're going to find human commonality with them. So if you say, I'm going to follow these 2 murderers around, interview them once a week, film them like documentarians, like those 90s expose documentarians who would film heroin, and they ended up doing heroin. They were originally trying to show how weird and funky and gnarly heroin is, but then they end up doing it themselves. That happened a lot in these expose things in the 90s. It's because humans find commonality. We look for transcendence, not only intellectual transcendence or spiritual transcendence through the Eucharist and the other 6 sacraments which subserve the Eucharist, but human to human as well. We know we're talking to a rational animal, even if it's a relatively immoral man or woman. There's something unique. There's a godly spark in all human beings. It's that we have a will and an intellect. The will tells us what to love, the good, and an intellect tells us what to follow in terms of what's true. Regular animals don't have that. So you can influence them or they can influence you, or a little bit of both. And that's why it's so tricksy, sneaky, Jesuitical. It's casuistry to use this, to appropriate this technique in the wrong way, which is certainly what they're doing. They just want to talk to 2 guys who lived the experience of being homos. Just talk about it. That's what they're saying. Taking a synodal approach to discernment, y'all. I just want to talk to a couple of homos about their lived experience. Experience is always lived, right? It's a redundancy. Two dudes that happen to like men's butts. We're just going to talk to them. We're going to make a huge study of them. There are real issues in the church that are very dynamic, that are interesting, that are sexy, literally and figuratively, that need probably some clarification. I've argued at great length with a lot of people, a lot of the best moral philosophers in the church. I mean, academically now, have gone 12 rounds over marital sex ethics. I don't mean whether or not you can use artificial contraception. I mean, the nitty-gritty. That's realistic, because good people living out their lives want to know, what's available to me. You have to study that, because it's actually a close call. This is not for good people. This isn't for Christians who are taking their faith seriously, because no one engaging in sod is taking their faith seriously. like a murderer, an active murderer, an active sodomite, whatever you call it. It's not for them, and they're not close. They're not close to walking the path. There's tons of interesting, dynamic, moral trolley car problems that get Catholic faithful philosophers into debates with one another. Hot debates. So if you're looking for a hot intellectual debate in moral philosophy, in action theory, in Thomism, there are plenty to be had. Whether or not butts are an entrance or an exit is not one of them. And yet we have a disproportionately high level of homos in the episcopate and the cardinalate. So they keep breaking it out to study. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the early aughts, in the 20-teens, and now here in the 2020s. It will not go away, not because it's some pressing intellectual issue. It's an intellectual turd. No pun intended. It's not interesting. It's a flat no. But they keep pushing the issue because we have so many damn homosexuals in the highest places in the church. And this is what Bella Dodd told us, what she told Archbishop Fulton Sheen. They were in place there by the Stalinists intentionally. And there are probably other reasons besides. I'm going to continue reading the article. Framing the two testimonies as experiences of goodness, which is just beggars the entire question, petitio principio, which constitute successive stages of development in the individuals involved. The document notes the protagonist of the first testimony's purported discovery that sin at its roots does not consist in the couple relationship, same sex, following the alleged devastating effects of reparative therapies aimed at recovering heterosexuality. Now, it's just being faithless. They're just going to give this Protestant definition to fides, which is more like pistis, these two terms in Greek. It's a faith that's more like a knowledge, the way the Protestants treat it. And they're just going to say, faith isn't a lived thing. Let's see how obedient you are. It's a very Catholic thing. Because we could judge someone's faith by how, which of the meaningful Catholic rules do you guys follow? I might not be one of these dudes out there that follows the stupid unwritten rules that other human beings, trads, silly, hyperconventional, conformist, mimetic desiring trads do. They wear a full tweed suit when it's 100 degrees outside in their own den or living room. That's stupid, if you ask me. Okay? We can agree to disagree about that. But the rules I actually follow, if I can't make it to a TLM, I go to a Novus Ordo even though I hate it, because it's one of the precepts of the faith. Any fine print you can show me, I will follow when it comes to grave sin, even if I'm like, dang, I didn't know that. That's really disappointing. That's a measure of faith for a Catholic. That's not for a Protestant. For Protestants, you don't have to really follow any rules, and that's the entire allure of Protestantism as it's existed these many years, these 5 centuries and 10 years or so. So, 5 centuries and 9 years. So they just say, well, you're faithful if it's a matter of epistemology, pistis, that's really fides. No, fides is a lived thing. Talk about lived experience. We know you by your fruit, Jesus said. We know if you're faithful by whether or not you're following the rules that matter. I don't mean the stupid little rules. I don't mean rules of human-made mimetic desire and abide. You don't have to abide the rules that others tend to abide because they want to be part of the pack. But you do have to follow the sex rules. You do have to follow the precepts of the church. You do have to get the basics down. You do have to listen to what Jesus said. So this document by these homos running the church, like Gresh and Hollerich, are taking specific aim at Courage, a Catholic group established for the support of those with SSA who wish to live chastely in accord with the church teaching. So they hate Catholics who are faithful that were probably molested by an older relative or something, and so are SSA. These are actually good people. These are actually good Catholics. These are actually faithful Catholics that have the weird desire It's not usual. It doesn't come from nature. It comes from abuse and neglect. There's no gene for it. They tested the hell out of this in the 90s. It's weird, but you could still be a good person. You got to live chastely, though. Same thing a priest does. Same thing as a man does if his wife is a quadriplegic. Same thing someone does if their spouse leaves them. Well, I just got to sit here and be celibate. That's just my reality if I want to go to heaven. And so they are the good Catholics who are SSA, who are being attacked by this Circuli Minori number 9 document. Citing a testimony describing problematic membership in the group. End quote. Problematic membership in the group. The report characterizes Courage's approach as reparative therapy and condemns it for having the effect of separating faith and sexuality. This is a great irony. Separating faith and sexuality? No. These people understand that their fides, their lived faithful experience, has everything to do with moral theology and therefore with sexuality. A huge portion, disproportionate, throbbing, vibrant portion of moral theology, moral philosophy, according to the perennial philosophy, Roman Catholicism, is sexual ethics and sexual politics as well, which is why the patriarchy issue is so big. But in terms of sex ethics, it's a hugely disproportionate swath of what we have to do to cooperate with grace to get to heaven. And so we would never say that faith and sexuality should be separated. We're saying they're attempting to do it. They're the ones saying you can still be faithful even if you don't faithfully follow the rules of sexuality, which are disclosed by both Scripture and the Book of Nature. Sex, yes, everyone likes it, but it has an appreciable, cognizable intelligibility, that is to say, formal cause, that has to do with bringing spouses together. You have a blast together, you know. But its telos, its final cause, is indisputable. Follow the science. It's procreation. And you can't separate the final cause and the formal cause in contradictory ways without separating faith and sexuality. And that's what you do if you're Cardinal Gresh or Hollerich or any of these homos in the church. They actually are trying to separate faith and sexuality. And what do? They project. They accuse the faithful SSA Catholics, the Courage group, who are trying to live chastely, of doing precisely what they're doing. And it's not what the Courage members are doing. What the Courage cats out there struggling with, you know, they whatever their stories are of lived experience, I don't want to hear, because I find it kind of gross. That's just who I am. Like, I was watching a Dennis the Menace cartoon, and whatever they say, I realized I was attracted to Dennis, or Richie Rich, a blonde, whatever their story is when they realized like they were SSA. I find it gross, but I also find it in a little bit more in the abstract, because I don't want to hear that. I find it inspiring that they really are keeping their faith and their sexuality together by realizing when to hold them and when to fold them. When to hold them and when to fold them. And by that, I mean, that's the loudest whispering I've ever heard in my entire life. No, it's fine. If you're not at all attracted to girls, if you realize when you're 6 or 8 or 10 that you're more attracted to Vanilla Ice than to April O'Neil or whatever when you're watching TMNT2 or whatever. I'm just a 90s kid. I'm putting it in my own context. That's weird from everybody's perspective, but that's fine. You can still go to heaven, but you're going to have to shut off the valve entirely and live celibately to be chaste. Other people can be chaste without total celibacy. If you're like April O'Neil, assuming you're a boy, it's different. If you're like April O'Neil and you're like Vanilla Ice, that dude, what's that guy's deal? Not my kind of guy. What's up, Andrew? But if you're normal and you like April O'Neil instead, then you don't have to shut the valve off. To be chaste, you don't have to be celibate. But if you're homo, you have to be celibate to be chaste. It's just that simple. The basic truth disclosed by nature and nature's God via public revelation in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Later in the text, according to the LifeSite article, Study Group 9 presents marriage as an open question regarding same-sex relationships. Nay, that's not accurate. And it states that solutions to these questions cannot be anticipated with pre-established formulas. Can you wrap your mind around the audacity? Pre-established formulas. Who's to say what a butt is really for? I'm not going to go by your conformist pre-established formula. If you think it's just for, exit only, you're being narrow-minded. Widen your lived experience. Maybe a butt's an entry zone as well. Maybe it's an intake zone. Maybe, it's gross, but that's what these cats are saying. They're evil dudes. I was talking to Dr. Frank about this. They're evil dudes, and this newspeak by evil men works. Not on everyone, but it works on enough people to survive. Worked on a lot of the Pope-splaining right-wingers under Francis. Jesus said, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything else comes from the devil. Jesus said this weaponized ambiguity, newspeak, neologisms, tricksy talk, gray speech instead of black or white, comes from the devil. We need to hear him. So we can't have pre-established formulas for whether murder is okay. Do you ever hear him say that? Well, like maybe in regard to abortion, but not so much. You ever hear him say, hey, there's a lot less clear lines on hate or hate crimes or racism or xenophobia. That's a lot more gray, legitimately. Maybe people, I'd like to hear a synod on synodality give the old gray zone treatment to, what about first world country people that are sick of the deracination involved by elite motivated, elite funded, deracination, immigration. What if people are really bordering on what otherwise might be described as hate because they're so sick of foreigners tarring up their country? And yes, that's a dog whistle. That's where we need to think. The solutions cannot be anticipated with pre-established formulas. There we have to take the whole context into consideration. But they would never do that. No, they want to be black and white on that, literally and figuratively. Racism, hatred, xenophobia, fear of immigration, fear of, migrant workers. They want to be real clear on that. And that's not nearly as clear. You have a lot of anger at immigrants right now who aren't white people coming from first world countries. If you're a white living in a first world country, you have a lot of justifiable anger. So that makes this a very open, lively question. You might be really angry. At what point does it cross over into hate? We shouldn't approach that question with pre-established formulas. We should be really open-minded, the way the synodality synodalists want us to be there. But now when it comes to is a butt for poo? It's literally this stupid. Is a butt for poo? Yeah, it is. This is how stupid it is. And it's childish. And I'll admit, I am too, right? But I want to be childish in a way that clarifies. And these guys are childish. They're butt men that they want what they want. And that's really childish in an evil way. I'm having a little bit of fun on a Friday night with butts. They want to have a lot of fun with butts on Friday nights in a totally different way. I just want to mock how evil it is to use the newspeak to make it like seem normal or passable, morally acceptable, to live out the lived experience of a dude that's into Vanilla Ice's butt.
You are one of a kind.
Well, no, I'm not saying that's me. Wait.
I'm not saying that's you either. I'm just saying the way you're unpacking this.
I'm just saying, I don't think there are any like parish orphan retrograde types that are out there that maybe need it this plain, but I think it stirs you up. It moves something in the breast, in the bosom of man, to hear it put plainly. And you know, part of what this show does, why you dial up rules for retrogrades, is to, when something difficult needs to be broken down, have a special show next Friday. Quantum Thomism. Thomism is the only reasonable explanation for the quantum enigma. I'll break down that really difficult stuff for you.
Who's going to be your guest?
It's a scientist, Dr. Gregory S. Gordon. Same last name as me.
Same face.
No relation. Same face, similar face, no relation. But also the other half of what we do is, when you have simple truths being muddled, even though they're really, really simple, we're kind of the opposite. Take the high-end truths, make them as simple as we can. That's really the job of the pedagogue. There's a bit of rhetoric involved in this other half, more like demagogy. I have to be a bit of a demagogue. These are guys that have committed their lives, committed their salvations to the butt, to the male butt. And I want that to be really plain. They're guys that are like, I got to save my life. These are like fat guys. I got to stop eating 3 cheeseburgers a day. But you know what? I'm going to engage in this serial endeavor, a series of endeavors, that is, of lies, put on conferences, write white papers, make it an ongoing synod on synodality in the church, only promote and elect the careers of other bishops and cardinals who are also butt men, make the butt, the male bottom, the center of our lives. That's a special kind of evil, a degenerate mind. And people, I'm always shocked how many people give quarter to it. The easy stuff should be anticipated with pre-established formulas. Under the title, Possible Pathways and Questions for Synodal Discernment, they just mean, look, can we make some deal where like the butt men in the church, the gay dudes, are allowed to act on their unholy, let's say, quasi-murderous desires? I really want to murder people. Can I keep murdering people and still go to heaven? I don't know why they want to make this compromise, because you're not making it with God directly. If God comes down onto Mount Moriah and deals with a new Moses, and you could get him to strike that bargain, okay, he's not going to. But what do you get out of surrounding yourself in like an echo chamber with a bunch of other homos that just use stupid math to say 2 and 2 is 5? I don't know what they get out of it. They know they're just conning themselves. Either that or they're atheists. While listening to the word of God lived in the church, possible pathways and questions for synodal discernment, it is necessary to address with parrhesia. See, they throw in parrhesia there, as if using this Greek word makes it smart. It doesn't make it smart. It's still stupid. It's a stupid endeavor. You guys are trading in your eternal salvation, your dignity, the 4 final things: death, judgment, heaven, hell. You're casting your lots with hell of those 4 final things, because you have this disordered desire. You just want to keep eating cheeseburgers. And instead of going, okay, I eat 3 cheeseburgers a day, I'm 500 pounds, I have to stop to save my own life, I'm just going to surround myself with a bunch of other fat dudes that are like, you know what? Cheeseburgers are good for you. And that's all they do. And then they go and they eat cheeseburgers to and with one another at these conferences. I mean, I think that's really what goes on with this group of this confounded group of homos we've been stuck with generation through generation in the last almost 100 years. It's really gross. It makes me mad. So they say they need to address with Paresia the currently recurring question of whether one can speak of marriage in relation to persons with same-sex attraction. It's funny because once they start going down this route, anybody with a corpuscle of sense is like, oh, no, you can't. Like, oh, I know the Bible and the Catholic Church have taught this stuff since Jesus's day. Okay, but am I crazy? Or is it so crazy that maybe it's sane to think gay dudes can keep doing their butt love and get married? And you're like, no, it's not. It's not. It's you. You're crazy. There's no chance. It is a non-starter. It's one of the few things that the Bible says is a sin which cries out for vengeance. No, it's you. Leaving the question open, the document asks whether Homo sapien relationships can be thought of as equal to heterosexual conjugal union, despite the evident impossibility of procreation. Well, no. The answer is no. There's nothing interesting about this. The document goes on. Consequently, we must ask how a Christian community is called to interpret and address questions relating to the educational commitments toward children within family, ecclesial, and social life in relation to the de facto unions between the believers of the same sex. Dude, you can't do guys. It's that simple. If you want to go to heaven and you can't, I don't know, at first think of maybe Vanilla Ice dressed up like Marilyn Monroe or whatever you have to do to kind of slowly, however that conversion therapy works, then eventually maybe the first girl you're actually attracted to that's not just a guy in drag is like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. I think gays like her, right? And then maybe, I don't know.
I was gonna say more Dorothy from the Golden Girls.
No, this is getting gross. That's just like an old fetish guy.
Like
that's
a
just a
mannish
straight
type
guy
female.
that's had too much relations with the ladies. They get into the weird old fetish, fat fetish. I think whatever it is, I don't know. Talk to your local gay about this. But whatever is the closest thing, if you can't get yourself into women or find a woman who's willing to deal with you, after you have that history, then you're just going to have to be celibate to be chaste. If you can be chaste by getting into women, then great, awesome. Conversion therapy seems amazing, is what you should try. Because if you don't have a calling to the priesthood, then that's a lonely life. I get it. But it's better than burning in hell for eternity. It's just not. Look, I'm a guy. I talk about. I debate. I think I'm really in the upper echelon of Catholic debaters in this generation. Don't do shows on the fancy pants topics. Metaphysics, physics, philosophy of nature, ontology. I'm going to do science and faith, philosophy of science, philosophy of particle physics next week. All that often, just to flex, a lot of times it's just this sort of run-of-the-mill, dummy Catholic Church news. Let's make fun of some Homo sapiens. But there's a real, like I said, there's a real role for, not just the highs and the middles, but the lows, because these guys they're like 7-Eleven. They're always open. They're always working. They're always chipping away at, is it just us? Or maybe we've misunderstood what the church taught about gayness for 20 and a half centuries. No, it's just you. It's really simple. They know they're going to get shut down right at the outset when they're dealing with a baller, a real nigga. And that's why we need one of those guys at some point in my life back in the chair of Peter. I mean, it would be amazing. Don't kid yourself. I said this during the SSPX show. Don't kid yourself that is Leo really based? Idiots out there. fat-headed morons, dunderheads. Is Francis actually so left he's right or based? No. Same thing with Benedict XVI, not based the way we were hoping. He was the closest call, but not even close. John Paul II, John Paul I, Paul VI, John the 23rd. These are not good men. I'd say it. And they're not based. But sometime in our life, we will get a real nigga back as Pope. That's what we want. That's what we need. And those guys will be like talking to me. Hey, let's deal with intellectually interesting things. Okay, let's do it. Let's do a show on quantum Thomism. Let's do a show on why the new natural law is wrong, ontologically and moral philosophically. Let's do a show on action theory. Let's talk about it. Let's do an audience on it. Let's do an encyclical on it, I guess, if I'm pretending someone like me is Pope. But what discerning minds are really good at, since these homos love discernment so much, is being like, that's a turd. That's an intellectual turd. No, next. We're not going there. We're not doing that. Put your hand down. We're not doing that. Murder's wrong. Being a homo's wrong. Even natural vice, like sex outside of marriage with women for men, is wrong. If that's wrong, then of course the unnatural vice is just get out of town. We're going to get a pope like that someday again, not today, not tomorrow, but someday, maybe in my life, we will get a non-goof. I'm trying to be charitable now. We'll get a non-goof back in the chair of Peter, and it's going to be based. But not now. Too many homos in the episcopate and the cardinalate. Consequently, I'm going to finish this up. We must ask how the Christian community is called to interpret and address questions relating to the educational commitments toward children within family, ecclesial, and social life in relation to the de facto unions between believers of the same sex. You can't have families. If you can't procreate, if you're not attracted to women, men, you can't get married. And you can't be sexually active either. You can't, I mean, let's be honest. This is the grossest thing I'm going to say all night. You can't be sexually active unless you got a man and a woman. I'm also sick of talking about like the perversion of these sod guys. I mean, it's sexually sinful, but you're not having sex if you're attracted to the light switch, the light plug in the wall, the power outlet. You could try. You're going to get a bad shock, and you're going to get a moral shock when you realize that after you electrocute yourself, you're going for eternal electrocution down there. But that's not, you wouldn't say, oh, we don't dignify it by saying, well, I had sex with a wall. You didn't. You committed sexual sin, but you did an ontological nothing. There's no positive name for that act. So when they convince us all, or just control the frame, set the language, set the linguistic, epistemic ground at, oh, can these two men have sex with each other? Well, you're asking may they and still go to heaven? The answer, before I answer may they, is even can they? No, because unless one of them is a woman, they can't have sex. So they cannot, and therefore they may not. But once you guys all agree, you start saying, oh, these two dudes were having sex. No, they're committing sexual sin. They weren't having sex. They were doing something else. See, you can't let them switch the linguistic frame on you. Cardinal Mario Gresh, Secretary General of the Synod, said the report offers concrete tools for addressing the most difficult questions without fleeing from complexity, listening to those concerned, reading reality, and bringing together different forms of knowledge. What different forms of knowledge do you need to bring together to be like, here's what's required by Jesus in the faith? Sexually, we have to be chaste. You can never engage in sod and be chaste. But he wants to make it sound smart, like my friend Dr. Frank said. He said, it is the synodal method applied to the most demanding situations. I don't even know what that one means. I'm not even going to try. Regardless of the report, the Catholic Church teaches that Homo sapien activity is mortally sinful and that Homo sapien inclinations are objectively disordered. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states, basing itself on sacred scripture, which presents Homo sapien acts as acts of grave depravity, tradition has always declared that Homo sapien acts are intrinsically disordered. So I don't always do this, but I went through the whole article there for you, just so you could be extra grossed out going into your weekend. So, I mean, I don't know. There's not really anyone that fails to understand these basics, I think, in this audience. I don't think if there was someone that would have been alienated by what we're saying in this audience, they would have been alienated long ago. So I think you guys probably just agree. This is a simple one, but I wanted to get it out there because the main note, the Synod of Synodality, Synod for Synodality, marches on. These guys don't quit. They are tireless.
A few super chats, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First and foremost, let me see here. There was one that was here. Why did it go away? It was a rather large one for 500. Let me see if I can find it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, let me put it on the screen. Please say a prayer for my recently deceased father. His first name is Gordon. Appreciate your work. Pax Tickum, Ryan.
Thanks,
so everyone, please say a prayer for Gordon. Also, we've been getting a lot of people in our chat talking about how they've been having some medical difficulties with their own children, with themselves. So please, maybe just all say a general prayer for anyone who's going through
not just your children, especially children, but also any first order family members. So that was Ryan with
Ryan.
Big super chat. Thanks a lot. Thanks a million. God bless your father. I will pray for him tonight. Your deceased father. I mean, any first order relative that is seriously sick or dies, it's that liminal situation in life where there's not really anything sadder or equally sad. So any first order, I mean, I understand it's sad if something happens to your cousin or your aunt or uncle or grandparent, but when we're talking your kid or your parent and it's unexpected, especially, and it's just, our whole heart goes out to you. And I try not to make it like a corny thing about the special needs, because now we have 2 special needs kids. We really do love the special needs families, though. And no, we don't join like the group. Like Steph was saying last time you checked in for a mammogram or whatever. You're like, if I ever got this, heaven forfend.
Breast cancer?
Yeah, breast cancer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be one of these people that like makes it my identity and I'm wearing that stupid pink ribbon and I'd hang a sign over my house like my breasts had cancer.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like one of us is going to kill the other. Either I'm killing breast cancer, it's killing me. It's a fight to the death.
And not talk about it and not be like, well, I'm a survivor. Because other chicks take a different approach from the pink ribbon. They'll be like, I killed it. It's like, no, you just want to kill it and move on with your life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want people to look at me and think about a pathology that I was smitten with.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. So it's like, oh, is there a Down syndrome group? Is there a
cerebral palsy
group? And I don't want to hang out with those people qua that, but I like hanging out with Catholics or good people or fun people that we have a lot in common with, because we have a lot in common with them in meaningful ways. And then if within that subset, you meet parents of special needs kids, is like, okay, we'll have a lot to talk about, because I don't just want to talk about like wheelchairs the whole time. I just don't. And you notice this tendency with secular parents of special needs people. That's like all they talk about.
It's like their whole identity. Even the kids' identity for us, it's like our 2 special needs kids are more than their difficulties. For us, they're just like regular members of our household. And we really do treat them that way. Yeah. It's like we
tease them, we joke them, we have nicknames for each other. It's just what it is to be close.
Yeah.
And it's what it is to kind of, I guess, just have a higher IQ approach to the rhythm of life and the being caught between the natural law and the positive law, the way Walter Kaufman describes the definition of tragedy.
Like our eldest, Abby, she hates taking baths. So we always like joke with her about that. Like, Abby, why do you hate baths so much?
When she gets a bath,
she hates
getting a screaming. You either laugh or you cry, and that's what's good about Catholic. You know, we're tragedians. You get it. You laugh or you cry. People that have lived a little bit are tragedians, and I my heart goes out to the tragedians out there.
Amen to that.
God
Another
bless
super
all you
chat.
guys. Okay,
Two more.
super
Sorry.
chats.
Hey, Tim and Steph, when will matchmaking program be reopened on your site? Seems like return has also ended. Is your program open to Canadians?
I don't know. It's looking doubtful at this point. The boutique nature of the audience meant that we did really well with return. Its first 2 years, 9 marriages, I think, within a bunch of couples that didn't work out, because we no one bats 1,000. And it's not a huge pool. I mean, imagine if like Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson did something like this. It would be a huge pool. Mine is like a set within a set, like based Catholics who are sort of trads, but aren't like gay nerds who wear 3-piece suits in the swimming pool. That's just kind of a set within a set. And so, yeah, we're pretty proud with 9 that got together. We re-upped then on our own. We were doing that thing with Nick Stumphauser and Will Noland. And then after the making of the movie, everyone kind of went their own way. And so Steph and I, together with my cousin Jillian, we retried it, and it just some decent matches, but it didn't have the same oomph that Return did. So I don't think we'll be revisiting it. Keep checking back with us. Next,
Zachademus said these perverted weirdos are absolutely obsessed with the pelvic issues.
Yeah, well, you know,
absolutely,
because they're obsessed with it. They have like a demon, a fixation with their sin, and that's their one sin that they really. It makes them commit to other sins, but it's the one sin that they're just fixated on.
Another big super chat from Zachademus, and he says, I hope everything is going well with the baby. Congratulations to you, and you're in our prayers. Our second kid is due at the end of July on my wife's birthday, funny enough. Oh, my birthday is in July 20th. Abby and Steph are both July birthdays. So happy pre-birthday to your little beautiful baby. Thank you for the big super chat, Zachademus. And yeah, we just got some good blood results today from the baby. We've been to the doctor each of the last 3 days, which I hate, but because I don't like doctors at all. But we got some great blood results today. Little baby Adelaide is sitting there in Steph's arms right now, and we're really appreciative for your prayers and any support that you see fit to give. So thanks a million. Sprite Yagami says, at what point do we go Eastern Orthodox? This is starting to go bad. I have faith in Rome, especially for its hardships, but I'm struggling with this.
No. Never. And here's why. It's not that they're not cool, because they are sort of cool. And I have lots of friends who are Eastern Orthodox, but it's always wrong. Remember, Pope Clement, our 4th Pope, exercised universal jurisdiction in 96 AD. He wrote a letter to the Corinthians. In 96 AD was the first exercise of universal jurisdiction. You never hear that. Jesus, in those 3 papal scriptures, Jesus institutes the papacy. That's all you need. Jesus says Christianity requires a titular head, a pyramidal hierarchy. It begins with Peter, and Peter's going to be replaced lineally. And if Jesus says that's how Christianity operates, then we're the only version of Christianity that operates with a pope. And it's just that simple. And if you go to the 4th Ecumenical Council, Chalcedon, with Nestorianism, that's the 4th, right? Not the 3rd. I haven't studied up on this stuff since last summer. Nestorius was the Patriarch of Constantinople, who's supposed to be number 2 in the church. And like the number 3 or number 4 in the church wrote to Rome and said, you're the only one that can excommunicate Nestorius. We can't do it. You can. That happened at the 4th Council. It was a prefiguration of this at the, reading the tome of Leo, I think at the 3rd Council, happened again at the 6th Council, happened again at the 8th Council. They kept making these appeals to Rome because the Pope alone has universal jurisdiction.
And you're missing the point too. Like we've talked about, the Saeculum Obscurum in our church history, where, way back in the day, we had a period of 60 years of very corrupt popes that were, adulterous, having children, like murdering people. 60 years straight of those sorts of popes. You're missing the point. The point is the Holy Spirit has preserved our church through some really wild popes and some really wild times. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's what you need to be focusing on. That no matter how bad our popes are in our hierarchy, and we've had times in our history where it's been super duper bad. People lived out their entire lives under like the yoke of bad popes. The Holy Spirit is preserving our church just fine. And that's what you need to take away from it.
Yeah. That's actually the better takeaway. I like that. Even though they were words spoke by a woman. No, that's a great point. That's better. Take that to heart. The Saeculum Obscurum in the 900s that Steph was just talking about, 68 years long. Guess how long it's been since 1958? 68 years. Do you think maybe that means that after 2026, this Saeculum Obscurum is going to end? I don't.
Yeah, maybe
it would be awesome if it did, and it will eventually.
And maybe, just maybe, yes, the hierarchy is important. We believe in the hierarchy, but maybe, just maybe, guys, it's not everything, So the church is doing fine, despite the fact that our hierarchy has just been wonky, and it's been wonky many times in our history.
Because of papal minimalism, just this stuff doesn't matter as much as you've been psyoped into believing. Protestants talk papal minimalism. Orthodox talk papal maximalism. Eastern Orthodox talk papal maximalism. Dumbass Catholics who buy the lies of Protestants and Orthodox talk papal maximalism. Anybody with the sales funnel, like Sedevacantism, Eastern Orthodoxy, Protestantism, they all have a sales funnel to funnel you away, to shunt you away from believing the three obvious passages where Jesus says y'all need a pope when I'm not here. But they have you believe that the pope is like this oracular,
that he's seer. Jesus.
Not even that, because they'll say, oh, we know he's not perfect like Jesus, but he's not an oracle. And that's not even what, that's even what Vatican I tried so hard to clarify and just did a bad job of. These guys get too prolix. They spent all this time writing Pastor Aeternus, and yet they were planning to get to a second half, which is like the bishops are really important and should inform the Pope stuff he doesn't really know about their regions. And that's what the Bishop Gasser intervention said. And Pope Pius IX made every single voting father at Vatican I read the Gasser intervention. It was the ground for casting a vote. And unfortunately, they just never got to the second half of, they did the Pope's powers. They're going to do the bishop's powers, which would have leveled things off. They never got to it because the Franco-Prussian War broke out. And it's a stupid thing in the church. There's lots of stupid things that have happened. It's a stupid thing that we haven't just said, look, we got to get the other half of the if there's a teeter-totter and we describe, the Pope has these powers that sound totally plenary, but we were going to describe the powers that balances things out more. It's still a hierarchy, but it's an autocratically minimalist hierarchy. If you don't ever get to the other half of the things, it really mucks stuff up. And of course, everyone's going to be thinking like a papal maximalist. And of course, our intra-Christian rivals like Protestants and Eastern Orthodox are going to capitalize on that. So don't be foolish. Papal minimalism is where it's at. And that's why, even though we've had raper popes, murderer popes, incest popes, I think, had popes that have done sacrilege in there. I mean, I'm not just in 1959 or whatever. I'm not sure that that's what happened. I'm just taking Malachi Martin's word for it. We've had popes that have done horrible, awful things, and it was in the 900s.
And so does the Eastern Orthodox.
Years before the schism, even the Eastern Church just was like, yeah, that's fine. Everyone knew papal minimalism was true until they got an agenda to make it seem not true.
And so does Eastern Orthodox, by the way. Comment on the screen right now. Eastern Orthodox has divorce, remarriage, and working towards female priestesses. It's like they have their own problems too. So where are you running to?
Divorce.
You might run into
contraception,
any
marriage.
shelter that is going to keep you away from like all of this stuff. So I don't know why it's like it's like the three pigs. You run to like a house of hay or you run to a house of mud. You know what I mean? If you're running, then you have a problem.
I feel like that's a race. There's racism embedded in that comment, and I love it.
You think I'm being
You
racist?
run into a house made of sticks, or run into a house made of hay.
Just don't
right?
run. Just stay put.
Those are what? Which color of people are the sticks? Which are the hay? And then the brick houses. We're the whites in the
The brick White House. Okay, so Stumped 11 says "Go Spurs, go."
yeah.
Have you got to watch the game?
Yeah, I don't know how or why they dropped game one, but I will say this: Minnesota's strong. They're impressive. They impressed me against the Nuggets. Let's go.
Martin Giannotti says, "Pick for the NBA title. I got the Wolves."
I think no one's
OKC.
beating OKC. No one.
Yeah.
I think OKC, if they don't get broken up again, the way the first potential OKC dynasty, baby Russ, baby Harden, baby KD, they could go a long time. I don't think anyone's beating them, but yeah, that should be those are the two best teams I think in the playoffs. Are the Wolves are just strong, but they're not strong enough to beat OKC. Yeah.
Shane Bonaventure says, strategy wise, you have to give it to the modernists at Vatican II. And until this day, SSPX getting owned by Tucho shows how trads have no strategy.
No, totally.
No strategy.
Know your enemy. And I don't never have I considered SSPX the enemy. I mean the modernists, but the modernists pwn SSPX. They just make them look like kooks. They attract more kooks. And really, I've made jokes and all that about Archbishop Lefebvre, as I called him for many years. It's not even that funny, but Lefebvre, he's overall a good guy. We just don't agree with everything he did, but far more friend than foe. But just losing the optics battle so bad. Trads for so long have lost the optics battle. Just look like angry dorks, right? Angry, sexually frustrated, generally frustrated nerds. And that you lose hearts and minds when you look like such a dork.
I remember that was one thing like Milo Yiannopoulos always said. He's like, if you're going to do this, you can never lose your cool. You can't lose your cool. Like if you're like a commentator, like if somebody's trying to rile you up or, when you're in a debate, that's what you do so well, by the way, in debate. It's like when people try to like rile you up or like get you going, you're just very calm. You got to stay calm.
That when with that second debate with Jay, when he was really getting a little personal. For one, I knew he doesn't mean it, but two, even if he meant it more, it's like, I was talking about Kobe versus Raja Bell the other day. Kobe versus Matt Barnes. The defensive specialist that would try to do anything to piss him off, get in his head. He would just ignore it. And it was so cool. You got to be Mamba mentality when you can't lose your cool, but you also can't be a dork. Okay.
Words of wisdom. I think that's it.
Keep it simple, stupid. Most inspiring thing I've ever heard, because anytime I'm about to do something stupid, I think,
do not do that thing. Hurts my feelings every time.
Hurts my very, very wise. Hurts my feelings every time. All right. So this is the end of the week, aka the weekend. Enjoy it. Be happy. Be holy. And we will see you guys next week. Please keep praying for my recently grown family. And I will pray for all of yours, particularly super chatters who requested it. Please keep my family in your prayers. God bless you all. Deus. We'll